move quickly on because I'm conscious of time. So I just really want to do a brief intro about the toolkit, and I think it's changing. So, okay. So I'm not going to do what I usually do, is a long introduction about HMEP. I think we're because we've been around for a while, hopefully you're reasonably familiar with what HMEP is. It's the Highway Maintenance Efficiency Programme. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're here to help you, the sector, to drive out costs at a time of austerity. And it's predicated around these four themes that are on this slide and I'm showing now. So we reckon, through collaboration, sharing, joint working, and this is where this toolkit fits in, there's a lot of scope to drive out cost, and you'll hear about some of the good things across the country in respect of that. Asset management is another key component of a highway service, and our view is that there is more to do in terms of more effective asset management. And again, I could talk in a lot more detail about lots of the products that we've launched, but they're all available on the HMEP website, so if you haven't been there, go have a look, and they will help you. We've done a lot of work around procurement standardisation, and it's just amazing in my view that the lack of standardisation that we've got in the industry, and there's so much scope there again to save money. And finally, benchmarking performance, because if you don't know where you are now, then how do you know what you need to invest in and where you need to improve? And there is not really enough sort of commonality around the range of performance measures in the sector. So again, we're working in that territory. I think the thing for me about shared services is that shared services talked a lot in local government, but actually there aren't many examples in the highway service. And it's certainly seen by government. If you've heard Eric Pickles talk about efficiency, I think the one area is the Secretary of State for local government that he talks most about these shared services. The government really see that as an example of where authorities can save money. And it can be applied in a number of ways, particularly across the smaller authorities joining up. And we'll hear an example from that area this afternoon. But I think one of the things we identified when we started to look for case studies, because if you've looked at any of the products that we've developed, they're all predicated on case study evidence. So it's not just us thinking it's a good idea. We've got good practical evidence that we can refer to with tangible efficiency gains to look at. We had to go beyond the English boundaries to identify where these best practices were. And Ian will talk about what's going on in Scotland. The Scottish Maintenance Review is a similar initiative around driving out costs, because clearly the issue about austerity isn't just common to England, it's the whole of Europe and probably the whole of the world actually. The shared service approach is very much seen as a way forward in Scotland as well. So what we wanted to do was say, well, how can we help the sector take on more shared services, and what sort of information advice can we develop? And as always, we didn't want to make assumptions, and we carried out a survey now, was it about 18 months ago, a while ago, to try and gather information, to try and sort of provide a better baseline and information base to help give us advice about what we feel would make a difference. And what we found with shared services, that we in our industry we could segment it into four key areas. And I think the good thing that you'll be hearing this afternoon is we have 4 case studies from each of these 4 areas. And it can be applied as a service whole consideration, which is quite a bold way to go, but it can be segmented into all aspects of highway service. So if you look at the operational end, I suppose the Scottish example is very much at the operational end, at the delivery end. And it isn't just about in-house, it can be across externalised services around frameworks and other arrangements, joining up. And the point here about collaboration shared services is about aggregation, because with all services, the more that you aggregate, the more economies you're going to get through your supply chain and the commodities that you use. We're also going to hear from Andy Warrington about back office services as well. So highways is like all council services, it needs back office processes. And there are a number of things that underpin our service, whether it's civil parking enforcement or permits. And the reality is that there is no need for every council to do this individually, independently. If you aggregate and join up, then you will save money. And why not? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Similarly, around technical services, a lot of authorities are really struggling now in terms of capability and skills around specialist areas like structural maintenance, traffic management, transportation. So again, sharing across geographic areas is sharing that technical, and that isn't just in-house, the out-house through joint procurement arrangements. And then finally, looking at management arrangements as well, and where certainly in the London example, it is about a joint management arrangement, and that's going forward. So here is the toolkit. They have this common look now, our products. And what does this provide? Well, what we've tried to do is structure it in a way that you could follow through each stage if you were going to set up and deliver a shared service. And everything we promote and deliver has to be predicated on a business case. So if it doesn't stack up financially, you shouldn't be doing it. It's about the business benefits of doing this. And it's not just about efficiency, but service improvement as well. So we don't want to take our eye off the ball of the customer in terms of what we advocate. So how to develop that business case we've included in there. And clearly, a lot of people hide behind the politics in this, and they say, well, our members would never work with that authority. And the reality, in my experience, and hopefully some of the others who are here today, that it's nothing to do with politics. Leicestershire has a back office shared service on support services with Nottinghamshire. They are diametrically opposed politically, but where they see a business benefit saving money, authorities will work together. So I don't buy into that, and oh, we can't do that because of the politics. I think that can be overcome. There's also the need to obviously go through that process, get executive approval. It needs to be well pinned. It needs to have good management arrangements. And again, we'll hear examples of how those are working in practice. It can be on a fairly informal basis around some non-contractual arrangement, or it can be very formalised, and it just depends what's appropriate. And obviously, you need mechanisms to review, monitor and manage. And the important thing for me in all the products, again, is not just about the business benefits and the drivers, but we need products that are fit for service, fit for purpose. And what we do is we work with a project board with broad sector engagement. So CHIT are very much part of this, as all these other organisations that we test our products out with. We get the input from them, and we make sure that it is fit for purpose and in a way that's appropriate. And I think interesting in this one, and probably more so than some of the other products, is that Celtic input, which has been very beneficial in this respect. I think the case studies are important. We won't just take anybody's case study. We're quite prescriptive about what we need in a case study, and the case study has to have this information so people can benefit from that case study as a point of reference if they're going to go to it. So, what was the background, what was done, what was achieved, and what was planned, and with some numbers in there about the cashable efficiency benefits. And I think you'll be quite surprised this afternoon about some of the numbers that we'll hear about some of the arrangements that we're discussing. What we've also included, and I know when I've been involved in developing anything, it's so good to get somebody else as an example to follow. And sometimes you might just want to take out the name of the previous authority and use it as it is, or you might want to adapt it. So in this document, I haven't got the complete document, possibly it looks right, we include in the appendices some, again, examples of a business case, a memorandum of understanding, so some document that ties it together, the cabinet reports that people have used, how we record the savings in a template form, and what review mechanism, because too many times people introduce initiatives and they never really go back and actually demonstrate that what was in the original business case is actually been delivered and post-delivery. So, our view is that there's nothing else like that available to you. So, in that respect, hopefully this is really going to be something the industry will benefit from in terms of providing that advice. And I suppose it is a bit disappointing that we released this back in the spring now, and to date we haven't seen a lot of take-up. So that's one of the reasons we're quite keen to promote it further and see how we can encourage further take-up. Because the reality is, the austerity hasn't gone away. in fact, our, the colleagues around in the audience from local authorities will say it's actually getting worse before it gets better. So, the time to do these things couldn't be more appropriate than it is now. And there are so many ways that you can consider across services that you can take this forward. So one of the benefits by having this product, it hopefully will help you fast track the process. It will reduce the startup costs because you won't be doing this from first principles. You'll be learning from the others, and hopefully it will help smooth you through the process and get it into place sooner than you would have done if the toolkit wasn't available. So that's just really a bit of intro from me about the background. Now, I can say all sorts of things about what I think about shared services, but it's really good to hear some practical evidence from people who've been in